Your response to the president's threats, to what your Democratic colleagues had to say.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. Let's deal with the facts first, even though the facts matter not one iota to the President of the United States or any of the Republicans who are disgustingly supporting this evil behavior. Here's the facts. Under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which determines what is right and wrong for our officers, for our military, it is a legal and ethical obligation to refuse unlawful orders. Okay, so that's the fact. And this goes back to Nuremberg, when the Nuremberg tribunal hanged German commanders, Nazi commanders, who tried to defend themselves by saying, I was just following orders. So the facts here are 100% clear. My 6 colleagues were simply saying what is the law, right? So what you really have here is shock that a bunch of members of Congress and senators of courage and character, and I know every single one of them very, very well, would deign to get in front of the president. It is completely incomprehensible to my Republican colleagues in this building that anybody would deign to oppose the president of the United States, irrespective of the fact that that is our job here in the Article I authority in the United States Congress. So look, it's important for people to remember that what those 6 people were saying was simply a restatement of what is the law of the land and has been, again, since the Nuremberg tribunals. And secondly, then they need to evaluate the president, basically using language that is going to cause a number of people, I can't tell you whether it's 2 or 200 or 2,000 in the United States, to think that they now have a warrant to think about killing these individuals, right? That is the state of the country and the person that we have as Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States today.
You referenced your Republican colleagues. I want you to take a listen to what House Speaker Mike Johnson had to say about this situation just today.
What I read was he was defining the crime of sedition. Okay, I don't. That is a factual statement, but obviously attorneys have to parse the language and determine all that. What I'm saying, what I will say unequivocally, is that was a wildly inappropriate thing for so-called leaders in Congress to do, to encourage young troops to disobey orders. I mean, think of what the threat that is to our national security and what it means to our institutions. We have got to raise the bar in Congress. This is out of control and is wildly inappropriate. And for a senator like Mark Kelly or any member of Congress in the House or Senate to be engaging in that kind of talk is to me just so beyond the pale.
You know, first of all, it is notable, Congressman, because ordinarily when the speaker is asked about anything the president has said or done, he has not seen it, he has not heard about it. It's very hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. So the fact that he was willing to acknowledge this, already a change of pace. The fact that on top of that, you get the word salad and then he pivots so fast to your Democratic colleagues who are standing up from the Constitution seems to be in and of itself a tell.
Yeah, absolutely. What you heard there in the speaker's quote was 2 things. At the very end there, you heard a lie, which is that these 6 members urged the disobeying of lawful orders. You can watch it. That's not at all what they did. So you heard a lie, and in the seconds before that, you heard what we live with in this building, which is that I would rather promote a dangerous falsehood from our saint and dictator, Donald Trump, than I would actually want to do my constitutional duty to stand up against, to provide a check and a balance against the executive, right? Especially when that executive is not involved in a policy disagreement, but when that executive is saying something that is both untrue and very, very dangerous. Look, you just saw the demonstration of Republican leadership. A lie and lickspittle word salad designed to pledge, once again, allegiance to Donald Trump.
Here's the thing. None of this is amorphous. We're talking about all of this because of the strikes that the president has ordered off the coast of Venezuela. Alyssa Slotkin told the New York Times that active troops told her they were concerned about the legality of those strikes. Now you have NBC News reporting this. The senior military lawyer for the combatant command overseeing lethal strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats near Venezuela disagreed with the Trump administration's position that the operations are lawful, and his views were sidelined. That's according to 6 sources with knowledge of the legal advice. The JAG at Southern Command specifically expressed concern that strikes against people on boats in the Caribbean Sea and the Eastern Pacific Ocean, whom administration officials call narco-terrorists, could amount to extrajudicial killings, the 6 sources said, and therefore legally expose service members involved in the operations. I know there's also been reporting that there is a memo floating around the White House that says, don't worry, these service members won't have legal legal liability. The fact that they are in a position where the White House does not have a cohesive legal argument for what they are doing, it seems to me it is inarguably putting our service members at risk. Your take?
Yeah, and what you just asked me about, of course, is critical context to what we were just talking about, right? Some of my more sane Republican colleagues here are saying, oh, it was the implications of the statement made by those 6. It was the context. Here's the context. Every day, the president proposes that the military be used in an illegal way, right? It was a couple of weeks ago when he suggested that maybe the military should use American cities as training grounds. And now, as you point out, we have what is absolutely an illegal war being fought in the Caribbean. So again, back to my 6 colleagues, right? You know, them suggesting that you ought to be on the lookout for illegal orders and that you don't have to follow them is in the context of a daily stream of illegal ideas and misuse of the military that we get out of the White House. But no, look, I've had the opportunity to review the Office of Legal Counsel opinion here. And basically what they're arguing, what the White House is arguing is that these cartels are like ISIS or like Al-Qaeda. They want to end the United States. They want to replace us with a caliphate. What they're, and that requires us to suspend disbelief that what the cartels are is what we all know them to be, which is a very, very ugly business that is selling a product to Americans that Americans willingly buy. And as a result, we're going to use the military to attack these people. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker if you're a member of Congress. We're going to get involved in what looks like a war, but it's not really a war that would require us to seek congressional approval. That was illustrated when they captured 2 of these people. And apparently they had enough evidence on these 2 narco-terrorists to kill them. But did we bring them to interrogate them or to try them under our system of justice? No, we didn't. So, you see what's going on here.
They repatriated those 2 folks so fast. All right, Congressman, real quickly, you and your colleagues in the House Intelligence Committee, you're warning about concerns with intelligence sharing. Can you explain where this story weaves together with what we've been talking about?
Yeah, there have been press reports, and of course we saw the president of Colombia say that we're ceasing cooperation on counter-narcotics. Maybe the British are, maybe the Dutch are. You can read the story. The point is this. The attacks that are happening on these boats are performative, right? That cocaine will find its way into the United States either through aircraft or overland, so it's purely performative. What is not performative is when the president of Colombia says, we're going to eliminate the partnership. We work very closely with the Colombians on stopping the flow of narcotics. That's a real thing. That's not a performative thing, and we just took that off the table for a bunch of Hollywood reality show performative violence that makes, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump happy. That is a terrible trade to have made.